Jai Gurudev. Namaste and my heartfelt thanks to the leadership and members of the World Association for Vedic Studies for the honor of this keynote. To be invited to address a gathering of scholars who have devoted their lives to the study of Veda is a privilege I do not take lightly. I want to begin with a simple question, one that ancient Vedic seers, contemporary physicians and modern scientists have all in their own languages tried to answer. What is the human body? Is it a mechanism, a biochemical machine that occasionally malfunctions and must be repaired from the outside? Or is it something more? The Vedic tradition has always said it is more. And in the last several decades, modern science has begun slowly, empirically, sometimes reluctantly, to confirm what the rishis knew. The body is not merely a mechanism. It is an expression, a living, self-organizing, self-healing expression of the same intelligence that structures the entire universe. And this intelligence, we shall see, is not passive. It is actually caring. It actively cares for itself and through itself for the field of life in which it is embedded. Over the next 30 minutes, I would like to share with you what I have learned from decades at that intersection. The intersection of Veda, Ayurveda, and modern science, with particular attention to the extraordinary integrative vision that my teacher, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, restored to the world as Maharishi Ayurveda. Consider what your body is doing at this very moment. Approximately 37 trillion cells are performing coordinated activity. Your heart is beating without your instruction. Your lungs are exchanging gases at a rate calibrated to your metabolic need. Your immune system is distinguishing self from non-self in real time. Your liver is running roughly 500 different biochemical processes. Your gut is coordinating with your brain through the vagus nerve. Your endocrine system is releasing hormones in patterns exquisitely timed to circadian, ultradian, and situational rhythms. And your consciousness, whatever it is somehow present through all of this. None of this is being done by you in any ordinary sense of that word. It's being done by the intelligence of the body itself. This intelligence is not an abstraction. It is measurable. It is observable. And it is, in every meaningful sense, caring. It attends to the survival, the balance, the growth, and the healing of the organism, moment by moment, without pause, from the moment of conception to the moment of death. When the finger is cut, no one instructs the platelets to gather, the fibrin to lay down its scaffold, the fibroblasts to migrate to the site, the epithelial cells to close the gap. The body does this by itself. It knows how to care for itself. Modern biology now speaks openly of self-organization, of systems intelligence, of homeostasis, as an active and dynamic process rather than a passive equilibrium. Cutting-edge physics speaks of information as fundamental. Neuroscience speaks of the observer as inseparable from the observed. Consciousness studies, the field to which I have devoted much of my specific scientific life, is now considered by many serious thinkers to be one of the most important open questions in science. And yet I say this respectfully, the fundamentals of everything modern science is now discovering was already known in a different language to the seers whose insights are preserved in the Veda. The rishis did not merely intuit these truths, they cognized them through direct experience of consciousness as the fundamental reality and then articulated them in the language of Sanskrit sound, passed through families, they passed them faithfully across millennia, and which Maharishi Mahesh Yogi systematized into the 40 aspects of the Vedic literature. That transmission is the reason we are gathered here today. The Vedic tradition holds the human being is a microcosm of the cosmos. Yatha pinde tatha brahmande. As in the individual body, so in the cosmic body. This is not a metaphor, it is a structural claim. For much of the last 3 decades, I have devoted a substantial part of my scientific work to testing this claim empirically. If the Vedic tradition is correct that the fundamental patterns of Veda are also the fundamental patterns of the human physiology, then this should be observable in the structural and functional organization of the body itself. The results of that research, published in my books Human Physiology, Expression of Veda and Vedic Literature, and Ramayana and Human Physiology, surprised even me, because the 40 aspects of the Vedic literature, the 4 Vedas, the 6 Vedangas, the 6 Upangas, the Upavedas, together with the Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishad, and so on, correspond in their structural and functional characteristics to identifiable systems and subsystems of the human physiology. Rig Veda covers the functioning of the entire nervous system, functioning like an unmanifest field from which the manifest activities, the manifest expressions of the nervous system emerge. The Sama Veda corresponds to the sensory systems, the flowing, receptive dimension of experience. The Yajur Veda corresponds to the processes of transformation of one form into another, including digestion and metabolism. The Atharva Veda corresponds to the motor and speech systems, the aspects of the physiology that establish and maintain wholeness in action. The 4 chapters of the Yoga Sutras, for example, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, correspond to the 4 lobes of the brain, with their gyri and their sulci corresponding to the sutras themselves and to their corresponding role in integration and precision. Vaisheshika systems deals with the particulate structure of reality, corresponds to the physiology's most granular molecular and cellular levels. And Ayurveda itself corresponds to the entire physiology in its aspect of self-healing and self-regulation. These are not loose analogies, they are structural, functional, and crucially, sequential correspondences. The order of the aspects of the Vedic literature as Maharishi organized it, as they have been put together, organized by a Maharishi, corresponds to the order in which these structures appear and interact in human development. The implication is profound. The Veda is not a text that was written by human beings and then interpreted through the body. The Veda is the sound of the intelligence that structures both cosmos and body. It is heard, cognized, and articulated by those whose consciousness has become refined enough to receive it. And it is lived, moment by moment, in the physiology of every human being. This means the body is not merely an expression of Veda in some poetic sense. It is Veda made manifest as flesh and function. And this returns us to the theme of caring. The intelligence that Veda names and that the body embodies is by its nature caring, because it is oriented toward wholeness, toward growth, toward the flourishing of every point in creation as an expression of the same underlying totality. The body's caring for itself is not separate from the cosmic caring that structures the universe. It is a localized expression of it. Ayurveda has the knowledge or science of life, not just the science of disease, not just the science of the body alone, the science of life. That distinction matters. Modern medicine, for all its extraordinary achievement, is fundamentally a science of disease. Its greatest strengths are in acute intervention, surgery, and the treatment of already established pathology. What Ayurveda offers, and has offered for thousands of years, is complementary and different in kind. It is a science of how life is supposed to work and how to keep it working. The Sushruta Samhita gives a definition of health so complete that it has still, to my knowledge, not been improved upon. Samadosha, Samagnisha, Samadhatu, Malakriya, Prasannat Medriyaman A Swastha Ityabhidyate. The person in whom the doshas are balanced, the digestive fire is even, the tissues and their waste products function normally, and the self, the senses, and the mind are pleasant and clear, that person is called swastha, healthy, but what it means, established in the self. Note that this definition includes something very special. What it includes is not merely the absence of disease. It requires balance of the three regulatory principles: integrity of digestion and metabolism, proper tissue function, and perhaps most strikingly of all, a pleasant, clear, established self. Health in Ayurveda includes the state of consciousness of the person. It cannot be separated from it. The three regulatory principles, the doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, express at the level of the physiology the fundamental cosmological principles of movement, transformation, and structure. Every individual has a unique constitutional balance of these. The Prakriti, which is determined at conception, and deviations from that balance produce Vikriti, the state of imbalance from which disease eventually emerges. The Ayurvedic approach to health is therefore not primarily curative. It is preventive, rhythmic, and constitutional. It works with the body's own intelligence rather than against it. It offers dinacharya, daily routines aligned with the rhythms of the day. It offers ritucharya, seasonal routines aligned with the rhythms of the year. It offers ahara, the science of eating in accord with one's constitution and one's state. It offers rasayana, the science of rejuvenation. And when imbalance has become established, it offers panchakarma, the 5 purificatory procedures that reset the body's deep functioning. It offers plants and herbs and relation to nature. And underneath all of these is a single principle. The body already knows how to care for itself. The physician's role in Ayurveda is not to impose caring from the outside. It is to remove the obstructions that prevent the body's own caring intelligence from doing what it is naturally designed to do. Consider the difference between a physician who understands this and one who does not. The physician who does not understand it will suppress a symptom, a fever, an inflammation, a rash, as if the symptom itself were the problem. The physician who understands it recognizes that the symptom is often the body's own act of caring. It attempts to burn out an infection, to expel a toxin, to redirect resources toward healing. The right response is not always to suppress. Sometimes it is to support, to give the body the conditions it needs to complete the caring act it has already begun. This is why Ayurveda includes disciplines that Western medicine has only recently begun to take seriously. The role of sleep, time to circadian rhythm, the role of diet matched to constitution, the role of the mind on the body, the role of rasa, the emotional state of one's food, one's environment, one's relationships, the role of purpose, the role of the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, in determining not just what we eat, but how our every tissues respond to what we eat. All of these are at their heart expressions of the same principle. Life is intelligent, and the wise physician cooperates with that intelligence rather than commanding it. Ayurveda, in this sense, is a system of skillful caring, a system that recognizes the body itself as the primary caregiver and teaches the individual and the physician how to support that caring. I now come to what I consider one of the most important scientific and spiritual achievements of the 20th century. The restoration of Ayurveda to its full completeness by my teacher, my guru, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. When Maharishi began his work, Ayurveda in India, as in the rest of the world, has been through many centuries of partial application. Panchakarma was practiced in some places. Herbal preparations were widely used. Some of the pulse diagnosis traditions had been preserved. But the deepest dimension of Ayurveda, the dimension that connects the physiology to consciousness itself, had in most places fallen into disuse or been forgotten entirely. Maharishi's insight was that Ayurveda in its original completeness is not simply a system of physical medicine. It is a consciousness-based system of medicine in which the state of the individual's consciousness is understood to be the deepest level of health, and in which practical technologies exist to systematically develop that consciousness alongside the more familiar Ayurvedic interventions. Working from the late 1970s onward with some of the greatest living Ayurvedic authorities in his time, including Dr. Bharraj Maharshi, Dr. Brihaspati Dev Triguna, Dr. V.M. Dwivedi, and others, Maharishi articulated an integrated system we called Maharishi Ayurveda. It includes approximately 20 approaches, all of which are integrated rather than modular. At its foundation is transcendental meditation, the effortless technique for allowing the mind to settle to its own natural state of restful alertness. This is not one intervention among many, it is the foundation, because the state of restful alertness, this rest of the body and the mind, but alert and awake, is the physiological condition in which the body's own caring intelligence functions most fully. Cortisol drops, vagal tone improves, the default mode network is quietly awakened into a balanced, restful state where creativity is enhanced. Cortical coherence increases, and over time, with regular practice, the nervous system develops a new baseline of stability from which everything else in life can flourish. Around this foundation, Maharishi integrated the other classical dimensions of Ayurveda. Restored to their proper place, Panchakarma, the depurification procedures, are offered in properly equipped centers around the world. Ayurvedic herbal preparations, including the Rasayana formulations such as Maharishi Amrit Kalash, whose antioxidant and immunomodulatory properties have been the subject of extensive research, are made available. Pulse diagnosis and constitutional assessment are practiced by trained Ayurvedic physicians. Here at Maharishi International University, we have advanced programs, and we will hear about them during this great conference. Dietary and daily routine guidance is calibrated to each individual's constitution and current state. But Maharishi's integration went further than this. He restored the dimensions of Ayurveda that require the full completeness of the Vedic literature in order to make sense. Gandharva Veda, the classical music of India, is applied as a therapeutic modality using specific ragas at specific times of the day and season to establish coherence in the physiology through the coordinating power of Vedic sound. Sthapatya Veda, the Vedic science of architecture, is applied to the design of homes and workplaces so that the physical environment supports rather than disrupts the body's natural rhythms. Jyotish, the Vedic science of time and celestial influence, planetary influence, is applied to understand the temporal environment in which health unfolds. Yagya, Vedic recitation performed by trained Vedic Pandits, operates not only on the individual, but on the collective environment in which individuals live. Vedic sound and Vedic vibration therapies, Vedic chanting used for tuning back specific organs and organ systems to their original rhythms and structural designs. And these approaches are not held as isolated modalities. They are understood as coordinated expressions of one underlying principle, that the human being lives within the field of independent influences, physical, physiological, mental, environmental, and temporal, and cosmological. And that is a truly integrated system of health, and that system must address all of these coherently. Behind everything is the consciousness-first orientation. Maharishi's simple sentence captured the whole vision. The best way to help others is to be established in one's own being. The best way to heal the body is to develop the consciousness that gives rise to it. The best way to prevent disease is to establish the physiology in the state of restful alertness, where the body's own intelligence can function fully. I'd like to say a personal word here. Maharishi entrusted me to the responsibility of continuing to make this knowledge available to the world in a scientific way, of protecting its fundamentals from confusion and corruption, and of making it accessible in the language of every generation. It is a responsibility I hold with the seriousness it deserves, and with the deepest adoration and gratitude to Maharishi, and through him to the entire tradition of Vedic rishis whose insights make all of this possible. And extending the personal, the inner and the outer, the consciousness from the individual to society, Maharishi has given the technologies, Vedic technologies, of transcending together yoga, going back to the self, and then as we do it together, Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Ubhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, we get the effect on all society. 116 different scientific research studies, and more coming now, show that when individuals practice these transcending programs together, they influence the whole society, creating peace and harmony, where we have seen decrease in crime, decrease in violence, reduction in hospital admission, decrease in accidents of the roads, and many, many positive factors whenever a group large enough has been in any society. So world peace is also part of the bigger picture of Ayurveda. We began with a question. What is the body? We have answered through Veda, through modern physiology, through Ayurveda, and through Maharishi Ayurveda, that the body is not a mechanism. It is an expression of universal intelligence. That intelligence is not passive. It is actively caring. Every physiological process, every act of homeostasis, every immune response, every healing wound, every developmental unfolding is an expression of an intelligence that attends to itself, that cares for itself, moment by moment, without instruction. The Veda is the sound record of this caring intelligence at the cosmic scale. The physiology is the same caring intelligence expressed at the individual scale. And the correspondence between them is not accidental. It is structural, because there is only one intelligence, one field of consciousness expressing itself in both. Ayurveda is the science of aligning ourselves consciously with this caring intelligence. Not to override it, not to dominate it, to cooperate with it, to remove what obstructs it, to provide it with the conditions in which it can flourish. And Maharishi Ayurveda extends this cooperation to include the deepest level of the human being, consciousness itself. Because the fullness of the body's caring cannot be established while the consciousness in which it arises, from which it arises, remains scattered, stressed, and unaware of its own nature. Total health in this framework is not merely the absence of disease. It is the full awakening of the body's innate caring intelligence, an intelligence that, when fully awake, expresses itself as swasthya, as being established in the self, as sattva of the highest kind. And when many individuals reach this state, the collective caring intelligence of society itself becomes different in character, more coherent, more peaceful, more life-supporting. This is the deep meaning of Maharishi's phrase that the highest care for the world is to enlighten the world. It is not to use it as a metaphor. It is the recognition that consciousness caring for itself is the fundamental architecture of reality, and that awakened human beings are the medium through which that caring becomes conscious of itself. The Vedic tradition has always known this. The task of our generation is to make it usable, to translate it into forms that meet modern life where it is, and to demonstrate its power through the rigor of scientific research. That work is well underway, and this association has been an essential part of it. I want to close with an invitation. The intersection of Veda, Ayurveda, and modern science is one of the most fertile fields of inquiry available to human beings today. It is not a marginal field, it is not a curiosity. It is, I believe, the field in which some of the most consequential discoveries of the coming decades will be made. Discoveries that will shape not only medicine, but education, ecology, governance, and the very way we understand what it is to be human. This association, the World Association for Vedic Studies, has been and continues to be one of the most important gatherings for that work. I thank each of you for the scholarship, the depth, and the seriousness that you bring to it. And I hope that the work I have shared today may in some small way contribute to what you are collectively building. To close, allow me to return to where we began. What is the body? It is the intelligence of the universe, expressed as flesh, as function, as awareness, actively caring for itself moment by moment for the duration of a human life. It is the Veda made manifest. It is a doorway to totality. And when we learn to align ourselves with its wisdom through Ayurveda, through Maharishi Ayurveda, through the science of consciousness, we come to know, in the most direct way possible, what the seers have always said. I am Atma Brahma. This self is totality. Thank you. Jai Guru Dev.
Thank you, Dr. Nader, for a very scientific talk, and yet relating to all the branches of Veda. Thank you very much. So I have a couple of questions myself, and we've received one from the audience. First is, this notion of care has seemed to sort of proliferate in many ways. There is self-care, there's healthcare, childcare, hospice care, primary care, spiritual care, and so on and so forth. How do you relate them all? Why this proliferation?
Thank you again. Beautiful question, and one worth posing over, actually. What is common across all forms of caring, whether we are speaking of childcare, elderly care, health care, spiritual care, or self-care, is that they are all expressions of the same fundamental phenomenon. They are all instances of consciousness recognizing itself in another form and orienting itself toward the flourishing of that form. In Vedantic language, this is what the self does when it becomes aware of itself as many, while remaining one. Care is what love looks like when love is engaged with a specific other. That is what unifies them. That's what is the unity underlying them. What distinguishes them is the character of the relationship and the specific needs of the one being cared for. Child care is caring oriented toward development. The child is becoming the caregiver's role, where it's protection, that is the potential to protect, to hold the space in which growth can happen, and it can happen safely, to bring patience with immaturity, to celebrate small wins, and to know when to step back so the child can meet the world. Elderly care is caring oriented toward dignity. The elder is completing. The caregiver's role is to honor what has been, to be present with decline without turning away, to make vulnerability of aging feel less lonely, and to hold the deep truth that the person before you contains a whole life. Healthcare is caring oriented toward repair and prevention. As we know, it combines technical skills with human warmth. Its distinct challenge is that it has been industrialized in a way that other forms of care have not, and the recovery of its human dimension is one of the great tasks, actually, of our time. Spiritual care is caring oriented toward the interior life of the other person also. It requires the caregiver to have developed their own interior. You cannot guide someone through territory you have not visited. And self-care, perhaps the most misunderstood of all, is caring oriented toward the one who does the caring. It is not selfishness, it is foundational. Every other form of care depends on it, because a depleted caregiver cannot sustain care for anyone. But underneath these distinctions, the essential structure is the same. All caring requires presence rather than performance. All caring benefits when it flows from a settled inner ground rather than from anxiety. All caring is subject to the same distinction I draw in the book, for example, between caring that nourishes and carrying that depletes. And all caring is ultimately the same field of consciousness, expressing itself through different relationships, different objects. The same underlying act. One light passing through many lenses, we can say.
Can you hear me? Yeah. That's great. That's great. Yeah, 1 second. Another question is, practical benefit of caring at scale. So, there's mental health issues, there are trust issues, breakdown in society, there's, crisis of meaning among people, having higher purpose. So, how do you feel that caring at scale, if it becomes more caring culture, would it help people live more meaningful lives and create trust in society?
Caring at scale, yes, absolutely. And this is one of the most consequential questions in modern social science. I want to answer it directly. The theory that collective meditation, as we would hear during this great meeting, I hope, if we have not yet, the theory that collective meditation can influence broader social outcomes is not a speculation. It is called the Maharishi effect, and it has been the subject of more than 50 published studies and 116 different experiments that have been done since the 1970s in peer-reviewed journals, including the Journal of Conflict Resolution, where social indicators, research, and others have worked on it. Dr. Hagelin, President Emeritus Hagelin, who is in the conference, can tell us even more in detail about it. The core finding is that when a threshold percentage of a population, approximately 1% practicing transcendental meditation, or the square root of 1% practicing the more advanced MCD program, which are all techniques from Veda, and therefore Veda has that theoretical aspect, but has, of course, the practical aspects that we are discussing. And so when those people practice the program together in a group, measurable improvements appear in the broader society: reduced crime rates, reduced traffic fatalities, reduced hostilities in zones of conflict, also improved economic indicators. These are statistical findings replicated across different geographic and cultural settings, not anecdotes. So the theoretical basis is the recognition, familiar to this audience that we have today in the place where we teach consciousness-based education, that consciousness is not confined within the skull of the individual. It is a field. And when a critical mass of individuals establish coherence in that field, the coherence propagates throughout the population. Now, could a caring culture at scale produce a similar effect? I believe yes, and the mechanism would be closely related. Caring, when it flows from a settled inner ground, is coherence expressed at the level of relationship. It is what a regulated nervous system does naturally when it encounters another human being. Multiplied across millions of interactions in workplaces, in families, in communities, the collective field of coherence rises measurably. But there is a crucial refinement. It is not any caring that scales this way. It is caring from a settled ground, what my recent book distinguishes from carrying. Caring done from anxiety, from urgency, from the depleted state that so much of modern society mistakes for caring. That does not scale as coherence. It scales as contagion of stress, unfortunately, and we are seeing exactly that outcome today. So the answer is nuanced. Yes, a caring culture at scale could contribute to world peace, but only if the caring is coming from human beings whose inner lives have been given the condition to settle, and which is why I have always understood the two projects, the cultivation of consciousness through practices like transcendental meditation and the cultivation of skilled caring in daily life as one project, in fact. Peace is coherence made social. Coherence begins in the individual nervous system. Everything else is downstream.
Thank you. We are kind of running out of time, but there is a question which is coming from somebody outside the MIU movement, and I feel that requires you to basically summarize your previous two books. What is consciousness?
Consciousness is... Consciousness is the ability to be aware, the ability to be conscious. And so there is a big question about its origin. Does the consciousness emerge from a complex nervous system that creates it, or is it primary? And this is what we call the mind-body problem. And unfortunately, among scientists and philosophers, the definition of consciousness, that's why this question is important, is varied, and people think it's awareness. Maybe I'm conscious only when I'm awake. Am I conscious when I'm asleep? Why do we say that sleep is a state of consciousness? Is dreaming some fantasy or there? What is it that is conscious? What are we conscious of? And it's very important that I have endeavored, based on the teachings from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi of the Advaita Vedanta, the ancient knowledge that sees consciousness as primary, to alert the scientists and the philosophers that consciousness is not only human-like consciousness. So I am conscious as a human. I see the present, the past, the future. I am conscious of myself. I am conscious of my desires. I plan, I work, I use instruments. That is one higher level of consciousness, and I can be conscious as an enlightened being that experiences unity consciousness, that experiences oneness with the divine, that has amazing grand experiences. But there are waves of consciousness, levels of consciousness. As we in humans, we have different levels of consciousness: wakeful, alert, not alert, drowsy, sleeping, dreaming, transcendental consciousness, cosmic consciousness, unity consciousness. We also have lesser consciousness. Human-like is one thing, animal consciousness is another thing. And even in the animal kingdom, you have different levels of consciousness. And if you go down the spectrum of consciousness, you can say a plant is conscious. So what is consciousness? It is the ability to detect, sense, interact with anything. So even any interaction, any connection is a phenomenon of consciousness. And that is the spectrum of consciousness, from simple, even particle and molecular interaction to the cells of our body that are conscious, that respond to their own environment. The organ has a much higher level of consciousness. We have described in the talk before about how the intelligence of the body is constantly adjusting, analyzing, secreting hormones, correcting itself, healing disease, improving systems. That is all phenomena of consciousness. So consciousness ultimately is a field of being, a field of existence that is primary, and from which all these waves of consciousness, all these perspectives, all these limited and unlimited perspectives arise. It's like the ocean with its waves. You look at the wave, that is one ability to see things from the wave perspective. You dive into the ocean, and you can see that all the waves are actually the ocean. So ultimate consciousness is that level of self-realization, which the Veda talks about, liberation from the limited perspective, and expand your awareness to know that you are Atman, you are the self, I am Atma Brahm. That Atma is totality, is wholeness. And that is the discovery of the ultimate reality of life, which is that consciousness is all there is.
Thank you, sir. That's all the time we have. I appreciate you taking the time to expound on those beautiful concepts, and thank you very much. We'll move on to other speakers. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause. One more.